All right, welcome to another episode of Around the County. I'm Miles Himmel alongside San Diego County Supervisor Jim Desmond, and today we have a special guest from Legoland, if you couldn't tell by the background that you'll see here in a second, Kurt Stocks, Legoland California Resort President. Kurt, thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking with us today.
Thanks, Miles. Great to be here.
Kurt, what is that? I guess let's start here, and I know we'll go to dive into some of the COVID stuff. But Kurt, what does the president of the resort do? What does your job entail?
Look, it's a pretty big job. For those who are not aware, here at Legoland California Resort, we operate our theme park, which I guess we're most famous for, but we also operate two water parks, our aquarium, which we call Sea Life Center, and we've got two hotels, our Legoland Hotel and also our themed Castle Hotel. So, it's a big operation here, the resort itself, and I think the best way to explain it is my time is very much split between the immediate performance, the immediate objectives, to keep us moving in the right direction, and then the strategic vision for the resort and making sure that our future is secure, working on a lot of development for the resort, whether it be new rides and attractions, new accommodation development. They're the things that are very much keeping myself and my wider team busy at the moment.
I would imagine normally that sounds like a fun job normally, but given the last 6 months, can you kind of take us through what the last 6 months have been like for you and your team?
Absolutely, and let me acknowledge that first part. It is a great job. We're very fortunate to do what we get to do. We have some good days, we have bad days, but I always say to anybody when I'm asked about my role, I've got this wonderful luxury that no matter how bad the day is, I can walk outside, walk through the park and see smiling faces of families and kids, and within seconds your day immediately becomes better. So, good days, bad days, but I think I've got a pretty cool job. But last 6 months, all that being said, have not been as easy as we would have liked them to be. It's been difficult. For the type of business that thrives on the types of interactions that I've just mentioned, seeing families and kids smiling and having a great time, our staff buy into all of that as well. Having that cut off immediately, effectively the tap got turned off in middle of March, and we've seen very little of that since. So it's been very difficult. We've learned a lot about our resort in that time. We're a resort that operates essentially year round. We have a small amount of closed days throughout the year, but we've never been through a phase of having to be closed for so long. So we've learned a lot about what happens when you shut the big machine down for an extended period of time. It's been nice recently to start to have our resorts starting to open. We've been successful in opening the hotels since middle of July, and whilst it's only a very small part of what we do, it has been nice to be able to test out some of our reopening protocols, but really to start to bring some guests and some staff back into our business and see some of those smiling faces. Look, if I have to really highlight the biggest challenge, it's really been the uncertainty and the inconsistency that we've seen throughout the last 6 months. And, everybody throughout the entire community has seen levels of inconsistency and uncertainty regardless of what they do. And, it certainly hit us. And, we've been challenged by the fact that some of the guidance in regards to reopening has not always made sense and has not always been as logical as we would like it to be. We've been challenged by the fact that there are a lot of businesses very similar to us or similar nature to us that are open and performing well and are doing really well with their protocols and their new operating structures and so on. And we feel as though we've prepared really, really well, and it's been a little frustrating to not be given that opportunity to get ourselves reopened and bring all our staff back and all our guests back. And, we've been really busy for the last 6 months sharing plans, with the city, with county, state legislators in terms of our readiness for reopening. And everybody, without exception, has been very, very positive towards our plans. And, we're just looking forward to the state giving us that final go ahead to get open.
Well, if I can interject here, Kurt, and I appreciate, all you're trying to do, and it is frustrating. I mean, particularly when you got the zoo and the safari park, and then SeaWorld is going to be opening up, unlimited circumstances soon, I understand. And then you're in this limbo that unfortunately the state, you're a theme park, and the theme parks haven't had the go ahead yet. And one of the things we've been trying to do in my office, and I know we've received your plans, is to try to get businesses and entities opened up safely again. And one of the things that we've been pushing with the mayors in North County and my office and Supervisor Gaspar's office is trying to say, okay, if you can meet the standards of social distancing, the standards of wearing the mask, the standards of keeping people apart from each other, and still have the park open, that's really what we're trying to push for. And hopefully, we sent a letter to the governor to that means. But if Legoland was going to be able to open, say on Monday or whatever, sometime in the future, what would it look like that's different from the Legoland people saw before? What would you be doing differently to I guess ensure their safety for your customers and your employees?
Sure. Yeah. Look, I think, Supervisor, you've seen our plans, and we've spoken to you a couple of times now in terms of sharing them. I think you know the level of detail that we've gone into with our plans. So when our guests come back, it will be a very different experience. But that experience that or in terms of what it will look like has been created and tested now over a really long period of time. We worked with San Diego Zoo, for example, as part of the San Diego Attractions Coalition on their opening plans, and they've done a great job with their reopening, and they've managed it really, really well. We've opened all our other Legoland resorts all around the world with success. No reported outbreaks from any of those locations. So as time has gone on, we've further refined our own plans, and we're even more confident and comfortable now with what we've prepared, getting ready to reopen. But in terms of the process, and I think it's important that everybody knows that the process for us to land with our plans started well before the lockdown occurred. We established health and safety guidelines across our global footprint for Legoland parks, and we established, I guess, a set of protocols that we wanted to work towards in the event that COVID-19 became a big issue, and clearly that's been the case. When we went into the lockdown, we started to look at risk assessment. We did an incredibly detailed risk assessment across the resort and looked at where we would need to adapt and change the way we operate to ensure the safety of our staff and our guests when we do get the opportunity to reopen. And once we had that risk assessment in place, it allowed us to basically pull our entire business apart and look at every standard operating procedure that we have in the business and rework it from the ground up to take into account new sanitization protocols, restricted capacities, social distancing, all the things that we all know and are familiar with now. We've basically ripped our entire business apart and rebuilt it under that criteria. But when our guests come back, what they're going to see is a different experience, particularly when it comes to pre-arrival. So we're putting a lot of focus on how we educate and set the expectations for guests before they arrive about what to actually expect from the Legoland experience. So we're going to talk to them about what's going to happen when they arrive, or before they arrive even, where they're going to need to do an online booking. We're going to have restricted capacity. And one of the things that we've spoken to the authorities about is about how we can safely manage a restricted capacity. And we will operate on a very much restricted capacity when we first open. And as a result of that, we'll have to ask our guests to make a booking before they come. So we're going to know on any given day exactly what type of demand that we should be expecting. Our guests will know that when they arrive at the resort, they'll get guidance on what to do around car parking. They'll know when they line up to access the park that we are going to have a mandatory requirement on face masks. They're going to know that we're going to do a health screening before they even enter the park. We're going to take their temperature. We're going to do a very basic questionnaire on any symptoms to establish that. We're already doing that at the moment with anybody who already comes onto site. So that's going to be in place for our guests. When they enter the park, they're going to see a lot of things that they're already accustomed to in sort of the wider environment in society with food and beverage outlets and retail. It's very much similar, but they're gonna notice very much a difference with our ride operations. Okay, so every one of our rides has been pulled apart, and the entire ride experience from when you enter a ride area, including the queue line in terms of how our guests line up, in terms of how they get onto the ride, get off the ride, and then exit the ride, has been completely reworked to ensure that we can sanitize, we can safely social distance, and to ensure the safety of guests and staff at any given time. So we know that the plans that we have put in place, and I'm more than happy to go into more detail, but we know the plans we put in place will far exceed any guidance that we receive from the state when it does come.
Well, how many other resorts do you have worldwide? And you say they're all open except for this one?
Yeah, so all our other resorts in Asia, Europe are open. We've also opened Legoland Florida Resort. They opened on the 1st of June. And despite some of the challenges they've had with cases in Florida, again, there are no reported outbreaks linked to any theme parks in Florida. So again, we know that the plans in place work. We know that we can execute them comfortably. So we've got a lot of confidence getting ready to reopen.
Well, I guess what we have to do is let the governor know that you've got this, and particularly since you've already done this worldwide and not had the outbreaks, and maybe not everything worked the first time, but now you've got the kinks worked out, as a corporation, to be able to open up safely here. It's frustrating, as you mentioned earlier, is the uncertainty that we don't have, and it's unfortunately been a theme here from the state, in that we have guidelines for schools to open, which is good. And we have those guidelines in place, but we never really have gotten the guidelines from the governor, and we keep waiting. And my adage has always been, well, let's keep knocking. If there's things we can do. I know we got a press conference tomorrow with the North County mayors, myself and you, trying to express to the governor, hey, we're willing to open safely, and let us have the local control here, so that we can open. Because the broad brush that's been used on industries, instead of using a scalpel and trying to figure out the weak points, I mean, the strong points are companies like yourself that have already done this and proven yourself in other parts of the world.
Exactly. And I would pick up on a point that you mentioned there. I think there's a real opportunity for the state here to look at the success that San Diego County has had with coming off the watch list, and prior to that, there was definitely the county seen as a leader in the approach to the lockdown and anything related to COVID-19. And I would encourage the state to consider that when they look at attractions as well. And I think they've got a really good opportunity to test the waters, if you will, with the opening of San Diego attractions. We do have a set of factors that are quite unique compared to some counterparts throughout the rest of the state. Most of our attraction is outdoors, and that's a big factor in the current thinking. And even if the state wanted to tiptoe into the opening of theme parks by mandating that outdoor elements of an attraction can open, I think that would be a really appropriate first step, and something again that I would encourage the state to look at, and allow us to prove the success, and then give the state confidence to extend the authority to others.
I think so.
Yeah, I was going to jump in here. Kurt, I read somewhere, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys employ about 2,200 people here at the San Diego or the Carlsbad. Is that correct? Around that?
Yeah, at any given time, that's pretty fair. If it was today, on any normal year, we would have around 3,000 staff working for us in the middle of summer.
And not to press on an issue, but I just think it's important that people realize these businesses. Have you had to furlough people? Have you had to lay off people? And if so, how many?
We have. So the answer is yes. We have a little over 100 staff on site at the moment, and that they're in all sorts of different roles. Maintenance and facilities roles. Obviously, with big complex rides similar to what we have, you can't just leave them. You need to continue to maintain them. You need to continue to run them. We've got a huge outdoor footprint here. A lot of our space is open parklands. we need to maintain that. We are operating our hotel at the moment, so we've got staff here that are operating hotels and our part of our retail in the park, and we've also got an aquarium. And the fish and the livestock that we have there, they need to be looked after. They need to be fed and maintained. So we can't just switch all the lights off and leave. And whilst we have a little over 100 staff on site at the moment, like I mentioned, there's still close to 500 staff on furlough, and then there's an additional 2,400 positions that are not getting any hours that they would normally have right now. We've worked really hard to maintain benefits for our furloughed staff, and we're really proud to have been able to do that. The CARES Act and the additional sort of benefits that have come the way of furloughed staff in terms of unemployment benefits have been really useful. But I'm sure you can appreciate that since the uncertainty of that exists since 1st of August, that's no longer a positive. And whilst we continue to maintain benefits, we are very concerned over those staff that remain on furlough.
Yeah, how hard was that? I don't know when you had to make that call, but we've talked to businesses, and I mean, I just can't imagine, and I don't know if it was personally you had to do it, but that must have been very difficult to tell those folks.
Oh, of course. It's of course, again, when you consider the nature of what we do, we've been here in Carlsbad for 21 years, and we've got probably more staff than you would realize that have been with us from day one. And that obviously nobody's ever seen anything like this. So, to automatically just switch off the tap in terms of what we do and take away what everybody does, it was a big deal. It was a big deal. We've been delighted to start to see some staff come back with the opening of the hotel and so on. But we really want to see those smiling faces again, not just from guests, but clearly from our staff.
Well, it appears, we're all kind of waiting with bated breath here for the governor to make a new announcement, someday, but he hasn't yet, and he has responded to, I guess, lack of another term, some pressures from different industries and different entities, particularly schools and things like that, of getting opened up again. That we've got the press conference tomorrow. Unfortunately, our next board meeting at the Board of Supervisors is not until, I think, September 15th is our next one. So what we're going to try to do is make sure we help you get the word out that you're, ready and willing to open safely. And hopefully maybe potentially send another letter to the governor's office, or there's even talk of a contingency of San Diego County businesses, going to Sacramento and doing some sort of an education type effort, not necessarily a protest, but more of an education and saying, hey, we're ready to do what's right. And that's kind of the one thing I've seen in San Diego County and yourself as well, is everybody's willing to do the right thing, and there's going to be a few outliers out there, but everybody's willing to take the responsibility and do the right things and say, we will follow the protocols. Matter of fact, a lot of places, in Legoland as well, we're willing to go above and beyond. Just give us the opportunities, open up those doors. And that's really what we've been trying to push for. And not to say that the virus still, we're not trying to ignore it. We have to kind of manage our way through it and evaluate the risks and take the safest choice we have. But we can't have 3,000 people out of work. That's just been, I guess, very frustrating for many businesses here. And you being a large attraction in North County, and I guess you being open actually helps other attractions, doesn't it? Do you kind of feed off, not necessarily feed off each other, but you share the same clientele as they come and visit San Diego County?
Exactly, and that's exactly right. We do create demand for each other, and at the moment it's summer, it's the back end of school holidays, albeit, but there's a lot of pent up demand in the market, and to an extent that can create almost additional risk, because you have very few places that are open, so therefore that demand all filters into the one place, so it doesn't naturally get spread out like it otherwise would. So I think there's a lot of upside there. You touch on a really good point there as well about educating those that are issuing the guidance about readiness and the extent of the plans that are in place. And we've experienced that ourselves, an enormous amount, that as we've met with, various authorities and legislators, the general perception is how can you possibly open a theme park under amended conditions? And as we talk through our plans, there's usually an overwhelming positive response towards how much we can actually manipulate our offering to be safe and be, fall within the protocols that exist, and actually how far above and beyond we can actually go. So, if there were any opportunity to be able to educate those that are issuing the guidance on readiness across the county, I think that would be a really great approach.
Well, that's what we're trying to do with this podcast here today. So hopefully, Miles, you want to kind of wrap us up here?
Yeah, well, Kurt, just kind of last question for you. What for folks, hopefully you can open up soon, and I know you guys are raring to go, and that's what we're trying to do. What do you say to folks that, let's say you can turn it on in a couple weeks or in a month or hopefully sooner? What do you say to them that go, should I go? Is it going to be safe? What do you say to those people?
Yeah, I can understand that the question will naturally be asked. I think there's a couple of things that I would point to. First of all, understanding the amount of outdoor space that we have. We are effectively outdoor parklands with scatterings of attractions through it. So our capacity calculations are incredibly conservative. We've calculated the capacity that we will work towards based on outdoor space alone. So we haven't even factored in to our calculation having guests on rides, having guests in restaurants or in retail outlets. So we've got a lot of space. It's outdoors. There'll be a level of safety that will be far above and beyond any expectations out there. I've spoke about the level of detail that we've gone into with our readiness, and the fact that very similar plans have been tried and tested in other locations. So that's again a big factor. The final thing I would point to is the nature of what we do, not just being a theme park, but more so the clientele that we have. We work with families with relatively young children. We have an unbelievably sturdy culture when it comes to health and safety. We start each day making sure that all of our staff and all of our guests are absolutely as safe as they possibly can be at any one time. And that's a culture that already exists in our business. These new protocols and how we look after guests in this new world is only an extension of that culture. So we're very much already set up to enforce these types of expectations and keep everybody safe. So, it's nothing new to us. So we're really ready to go, Miles.
Well, Kurt, I really appreciate you. I know you're busy, and I hope that we all get to see you. I know we'll see you tomorrow at the press conference, but we all get to see you in a normal circumstance soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Kurt. Hope you can open soon. We're gonna work towards that effort.
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.